Good afternoon, everyone. It's 2 o'clock in Hong Kong. So thank you very much for coming to the third roundtable in these 2 days in a series for our book about Asian art archive. And so yesterday, if you were also here, we listened to 8 different speakers, and 7 of them were contributors of our book. And one of them is actually our publisher. And so we had already a very rich and inspiring communication about the method and also the reason and the difficulties of creating or using art archives in Asia. So today, in the last roundtable, we are very happy to have 3 more scholars and also a curator and archivists, from Japan. All of them are from Japan. For the easiness for the language communication, but also I think it will be a very interesting session for all the 3 speakers to maybe have a little discussion after their presentation. And so I have to say that this project, maybe I can share the screen with you now about about this very book. Yes, sorry about the. Okay, I think you can see my screen now. And so this is our book. It's called The Possibility or Impossibility of Art Archives, Theory and Experience in or from Asia. And I have to say a little bit, if you have listened to this monologue from yesterday, I'm sorry, you have to maybe listen to it again. This book was conceived, the idea of it was conceived in 2017. Actually, 1 year after I started this research project about art archive and its conceptualization in Asia. And actually 1 year before, in 2016, I did a research in residency program in Fukuoka in Japan at the Fukuoka Asian Art Museum, where I actually got a lot of help and also met a lot of new friends who are interested in the topic in Japan. And actually, today's speakers are among those friends I met in 2016. And so the next year, I began to conceive this edited volume in which many Asian scholars, artists, curators, and activists who have been working with art archive in Asia contributed to this book. So the book has been there for some time, and in 2019, I have finished all the, first draft of both English and the Chinese version of this book. But so far, it's still not yet published because of some difficulties of publication in mainland China. So this year, I have decided to stop the contract with the press in Shanghai. I have to say it's not their fault at all, but we cannot wait for so long anymore. And I decided to terminate the contract with them, and we are going to sign a new contract with an independent publisher, also in Shanghai, but they have much more flexibility. So I'm very excited, and also I'm pretty confident that this book, first in its simplified Chinese version, will come out by the end of this year. And maybe in 1 more year's time, I can have the English version ready. So I won't talk too much about my own exploration about the theories of archive, no matter the Western series or my own exploration of the translation of the term archive into Chinese, and how the concepts really amazed me, because I really didn't realize that these terms actually has its very long tradition, but also, well, some of them are really rooted in the thousands of years of the textual tradition in China, but the other or more modern translation of the term is actually not long than 200 years. And so, so archive in Asia could be of a very different temporal and spatial meaning in all these different kind of contexts, as is suggested by the conceptualization of archive. So my major question for this edited volume is also from all these cases that we see in this book. Can Asian experience generate theories of archive? And I think since yesterday, we have also learned a lot, or you know, all the authors' inspirations have, you know, given us a pretty positive answer to this question. And so I think there is also one common thing that all these cases share, that they are not those, you know, national archives or archives that belongs to a very powerful, authoritative institution, no matter it's state-owned or commercial, but a lot of them are quite alternative or even marginal. But I really want to put these alternative archives into the foreground, and so that we can see all these, you know, energies, and also, you know, these very unique understanding of archive, you know. So so I think there are a lot of different reasons why these alternative archives were produced, were created, or used by artists. So I think the experience or the you know, the situation we are facing might, of course, site specific, but actually they also share a lot of commonness. So so I won't say too much about my part. I would just want to give you a very quick overview of our table of content, where today I think two of the speakers well belongs to the first part about the accumulation and the creation, the birth, how an archive is born, was born. Okay, so we will listen to KAIJIYA Kenji-san and also MORISHITA Takashi-san about their making of archive. And the second part is more about how artists and curator make use of archive to do their work, and how they reconstitute or recompose the content of archive. So these are some things we hear yesterday, and maybe we will hear also later. And the last part would be about the relation between community building and archive making. And so, so today Shimizu-san will talk a little bit about that. So I will not really go into details. So this is one of my article about visual archive and the common in contemporary East Asia. So please follow us for more updates, because even after these 2 days very intensive roundtables, we have actually 2 more days, which we will have 2 singular individual talks on June the 4th and also June the 11th. So 4 more contributors to the book will also give an individual talk about their chapter, their research in those 2 days. So please follow us on these SNS, and also most importantly, once we have the news about the publication of the book, you will get updated on these platforms. So, so this is what I would like to say. And also, I would like to, first of all, maybe give you a brief introduction of the speakers today. We have 3 speakers today, so I will introduce them according to the order of the appearance of their chapter in the book. Okay, so first of all, I'm very happy to introduce you Professor KAIJIYA Kenji. So he is professor of interdisciplinary cultural studies at the University of Tokyo and director of the Oral Art History Archives of Japanese Art, which he will talk about today. So his recent publication includes Painting as Information, the Reception of Abstract Expressionism in Japan in American Art in Asia. And also his first book, Formless Modernism, Color Field Painting and 20th Century American Culture, is forthcoming from the University of Tokyo Press. He is a co-editor of the From the Post-War to the Postmodern Art in Japan, 1945 to 1989, primary documents. So welcome, Professor KAIJIYA. And we also have Morishita Takashi-san. He is director of Hijikata Tatsumi Archive in Japan. And Morishita-san has been working as at Asbestos Can and also Hijikata Tatsumi Studio and Theater since 1972. He has been collecting and preserving Hijikata's Buto materials, endeavoring to make them public and aiming to popularize Hijikata's Buto to the world after Hijikata's death in 1986. Then he established the Hijikata Tatsumi Archive at the Keio University Art Center in 1998. And he has been managing its archive as a director to develop it to become the representative dance archive of Japan. Hijikata Archive is receiving a lot of dance researchers and dancers from all over the world every day. And he is author of books such as Hijikata Tatsumi and Buto, and Unparalleled Buto Dancer Hijikata Tatsumi, Hijikata Tatsumi photographic record of Buto's body, Hijikata Tatsumi's notional Buto, an innovative method for Buto creation in 2015. And lastly, we have Mr. Shimizu Kento, and he is senior curator at Sendai Mediatheque, Japan. Sendai Mediatheque, and also he's working at the Mediatheque as a senior, he has curated contemporary art exhibitions and projects. Major exhibitions in recent years include Rie Koshiga, Rising Kaigan, and Record and Recalling, Walking on the House of Image, Nice to Meet You, Art Technique, and Hisolum, Temporary Human, Fumiaki Aono, Mono Sleeping, KAIJIYA Voiceover, Restorations of Narrative last year, and etc. So welcome all of you to today's roundtable. So maybe I will invite also in the order of my introduction of the speakers. Maybe so, KAIJIYA sensei, maybe you can start.
Sure. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Can you see the
Yes,
screen?
no problem. Yeah.
I will talk about the chapter I contributed to the book Pandu mentioned in your introduction. Established in 2006, the Oral History Archives of Japanese Art is a volunteer-based non-profit organization devoted to conducting interviews with individuals involved in the field of modern and contemporary Japanese art. The main mission of the archives is to collect and preserve these interviews as historical documents. With the financial support of the Ishibashi Foundation and the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science, there are currently 60 members working for the archives in Japan, who are joined by 4 overseas members and a legal advisor. The interviewees include a variety of people affiliated with the art world of Japan, including artists, critics, curators, galleries, scholars, editors, and administrators, among others. As of today, we offer access to 192 oral history interviews with 111 people on the archive's website, oralarthistory.org. Today, I will give an overview of the article I contributed to the book. I will talk about how we established the archives and discuss examples of the interviews that show their diversity. I will also talk about our other activities to make oral histories more visible and prominent in Japan. Our idea of an oral history of Japanese art began to take shape in August 2006, when I came back to Japan after studying American art in the United States for 8 years. After returning to Japan, I spoke to Ikegami Hiroko, who had also studied American art in the US and who had come back to Japan a year earlier than me. For our American art research, both of us had used archival materials at various archives such as Archives of American Art, the Getty Research Institute, and the Museum of Modern Art Archives. When we started our research again in Japan, we began to work on post-war Japanese art in addition to American art, but we found that there were virtually no public archives of modern and contemporary art available in Japan, except Keio University Art Center, about which Morishita-san will talk later in this session. The art library at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Tokyo had accepted some archival materials such as diaries, sketchbooks, and manuscripts, which were overshadowed by their main mission, that is to collect books and magazines. This is names of major art archives in Japan, but of course this is not exclusive list, just a sample of art archives. Of course, this list doesn't include archives collecting materials other than art. Tokyo National Research Institute for Cultural Properties, which is now accepting archival materials actively, was not in full operation about collecting archival materials at the moment. Although post-war Japanese art was a rising field in global art history, the absence of art archives in Japan would be an obstacle to the development of the area. That is why we made a somewhat audacious decision to create one, especially focusing on oral histories, partly because oral histories don't require a large physical space for preserving materials. Ikegami and I recruited 4 art historians and curators from our generation and established the archives in December 2006. The Oral History Archives of Japanese Art is the first art archive for the collection and preservation of oral history interviews with Japanese artists and other art professionals in Japan. When we started our operation, the artists who were active in the 1950s were now in their 80s. We felt an urgency to conduct interviews with this generation while many were still in good health. We prioritized the project so that there would be no delay in completing crucial interviews. We conducted our first interviews in August and September of 2007 with Shiraga Kazuo, a member of the Gutai Art Association who passed away in the following year. Since that time, we have learned a great deal and have continually updated our methods and practices to get the most from each oral history interview. This is a list of the interviews we conducted since 2007. I believe examples of actual interviews are useful to show how different types of people we have interviewed and how various kinds of topics the interviews have covered. First, I'd like to introduce our interviews with established artists. Most of these artists have already done other interviews and have articles and other writings that can provide a lot of information to interested parties. That said, we think we are still able to get new information from them through our interviews. For example, the archives interviewed Shiraga Kazuo, as I mentioned before. Although Shiraga was already interviewed by Yamamura Tokutaro and Osaki Shinichiro in 1985, we had Kato Mizuho, a specialist on Gutai, interview him based on the current scholarship of Japanese art. While his 1995 interview focused on his major works and events, we dug into more details, asking him further about his student days, his interests and pursuits, and his devotion to Buddhism. Although Buddhism was discussed briefly in his 1985 interview, it was not developed further by the interviewers. During our own interview, Shiraga's reference to Buddhism made us aware of the relationship between his food paintings and his Buddhist practices, although we should be cautious not to overestimate the influence of indigenous culture on a non-Western artist who is well informed about Western modern art. Our interview with Liu Fan includes his reference to his early work made of a stone, a steel plate, and a sheet of glass as a device that deceives the eye. Li placed a glass plate on top of a sheet of steel. At first glance, the glass appeared to be broken, but in fact, the sheet of steel is cracked. This information had not been overtly disclosed before. Tomatsu Shomei told us about the detail of his photograph of Kataoka Tsuyo, a survivor from the atomic bombing of Nagasaki, especially about the background in which Kataoka permitted Tomatsu to photograph her face with its keloid burns. Second, we have also interviewed artists who live and work in provincial cities far from Tokyo and Osaka. They include Ida Shoji, Niwa Katsuji, and Suzuki Yoshinori, who are the artists of the group Genshoku in Shizuoka, and Kato Akira and Arimura Shintetsu, who are artists based in Maebashi. In addition, we interviewed artists in Kochi, Ashikaga, Kitakyushu, Fukuoka, and other local cities. Some of these interviews revealed how the artists had difficulties working in avant-garde styles while being ignored for a long time in their local regions. Third, interviews with artists who are not the leading figures of a particular collective or movement provide us with a fresh view, since the narratives of a given collective or movement are often constructed by their leading figures and don't include different views by other members. Such distinct views are expressed in the interviews of Mizukami Jun, Hayashi Yasuo, and Tabe Mitsuko. Mizukami told us about the less well-known but important role he played in the art collective called The Play. Hayashi insisted that his group Shikokai was more advanced than the renowned Sodeisha in the practice of avant-garde ceramics. Tabe's oral history reveals her difficult position within the male-dominated art collective Kyushuha. Fourth, we have conducted numerous interviews with Japanese artists who live and work outside of Japan, including Shiraga Kazuo, Arakawa Shusaku, Sugiura Kunie, Nakazato Hitoshi, Saito Takako, and others. Many of the activities have not been dealt with properly by Japanese institutions or institutions in the countries where the artists live. So I believe our oral history interviews contribute to the enhanced visibility of artists who may have slipped between the gaps. Lastly, we have also interviewed people who have worked behind the scenes, such as museum staff and dealers of small galleries. Examples here include Kanazawa Takeshi, who had devoted himself to the promotion of contemporary Japanese art abroad, first as Secretary General for the Japan Art Festival Association in the 1970s, and then as Vice Director at the Hara Museum of Contemporary Art. Matsubara Mitsue, owner of Van Gallery, who has worked on showing contemporary art in Osaka for more than 30 years. Nakajima Masatoshi, an art librarian and bibliographer, who was a key figure in the launch of art libraries in Japan. And Yasunaga Koichi, curator and director at Fukuoka Asian Art Museum, who has played a crucial role in showing contemporary Asian art in Japan. In addition to constructing the oral history archives by collecting interviews, we have held 3 symposia to promote the idea of oral histories as a useful method of art historical studies in Japan. In November 2009, we held our first symposium entitled The Possibilities of Oral Art History at the National Museum of Art in Osaka. This was our first opportunity to speak about the archive's activities in public. Our second symposium, The Practices of Oral Art History, was held at Tokyo University of the Arts in November 2010. Here we discussed the favorable relationship between oral histories and museum activities. These 2 symposia greatly contributed to making the use of oral histories more visible to many art professionals in Japan. In July 2017, after an interval of 7 years, we held the 3rd symposium at the University of Tokyo, which was entitled Various Voices from Post-War Japanese Art. Although we have conducted many oral history interviews that cover major areas of post-war Japanese art, we have also paid careful attention to artists who deserve more recognition, especially artists in minority groups. The symposium was intended to show how oral history interviews can contribute to appreciating and discussing those artists. In contrast to the symposia, which have been held to inform more people about the benefits of oral histories and archives activities, we also hold workshops to improve our interviewing methods. So far, we have held 7 workshops inviting various individuals who have broad interviewing experience. Among them, the 6th workshop held in 2017 deserves special mention. We invited Shimizu Yuichiro, professor of Japanese politics and history at Keio University, who is well known for his involvement in oral history interviews with Japanese politicians and government officials. When he analyzed and commented on our oral history interviews, Shimizu discussed how to develop an interview with a focus on what he called words with heat, 熱のある言葉, emotionally charged but unemphatic, inconspicuous words from which we could unfold the person's story to elicit what the interviewee considers most important in their life. Shimizu's analysis and comments were invaluable for improving our interviews. In order to circulate the collected oral histories to those in Japan's art world, we provide the interviews to museums so that curators can play oral history videos during exhibitions, quote the interviews on wall texts, and publish them in exhibition catalogs. For example, in 2013, the Hyogo Prefecture Museum of Art shows a video of Fukushima Michio's oral history in its group exhibition, featuring works donated by the Shinanobashi Gallery, a gallery in Osaka, closed in 2010. Parts of our interview with Egami Shigeo were used as a wall text for his solo exhibition at the Kichijoji Art Museum in 2018. Our oral history interviews were fully or partially published in exhibition catalogs and online journals on the work of Shiraga Kazuo, Sugiura Kunie, Ishiuchi Miyako, Yamaguchi Katsuhiro, Kato Akira, and Arimura Shintetsu. Kubota Shigeko, Motonaga Sadamasa, Okanoue Toshiko, Izumi Tatsu, Cho Shigeyuki, and others. In addition, from 2005, from 2015, we started to make each oral history into a booklet and donate the booklets to 3 major libraries. That is, the National Diet Library in Tokyo, the library at the National Museum of Modern Art in Tokyo, and the library at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Tokyo. We have 2 reasons why we chose to create the booklets. First, we want to secure the preservation of the oral history interviews so that they will survive if we cannot maintain our operation on the website in the future. Second, we want to make it easier for researchers to find our oral history interviews because these 3 libraries have rich online catalogs that many art historians in Japan use to conduct research on modern and contemporary art. Researchers can access the interviews in paper form easily if they are unable to find the online versions in the sea of information on the internet. It has been 15 years since we established the oral history archives of Japanese art. We have interviewed a wide variety of art professionals, artists from the Gutai Art Association of the 1950s, conceptual and performance artists of the 1970s, artists who have played a crucial part in post-war Japanese art history, and artists who have been active outside the mainstream art history, as well as various critics, curators, gallerists, scholars, and others. However, we cannot comprehensively cover the diverse art professionals of Japan by ourselves alone. That is why we wish to assist other institutions and other initiatives to embark on oral history archives projects themselves. Indeed, it is desirable that several oral history archives be established so that together we can cover the wide variety of art activities. In Japan. Thank you very much for listening. This is the end of my talk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, KAIJIYA-san, for this introduction to this actually quite mature, I would say, archive because it's been established for a long time. I do have some like follow-up questions, and I think maybe audience might also have something to ask. So especially about the, oral history and how, for example, when conflicts from two persons of the same thing arise, what will happen, or a lot of these interesting questions. So but thank you so much for now, and maybe I will move on to the next speaker first. Okay, thank you. So next will be Morishita sensei talking about Buto Dance Archive. It's about the performing art archive, which we usually think among all these, art forms, performing art is very difficult to archive because it's a kind of ephemeral, so it's time-based. So how can we do that? So maybe, so I don't think Morishita doesn't have PowerPoint, so maybe we will just listen to his talk. And yeah. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, please. Yes, you can speak.
Okay, よろしいですか。はい。土方アーカイブについて、皆さんにご紹介、ご案内をさせていただきます。青山さん、すみません、そこから言ってください。
Okay, so I'm going to introduce Hijikata Tatsumi archive right now.
Sorry. So I thought I needed to introduce also Aoyama-san.
Okay, thank you.
Because yes, Aoyama Reijiro-san is my colleague at Polytechnic University in Hong Kong, and so he is actually an anthropologist and has been doing a lot of research project about the Japanese in overseas countries and also East Asia popular culture, and also many interesting education related projects. So I'm very happy that he is here to help me and to do the translation for the audience and also the speaker in the next two speeches. So yes, sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Morishita-san, yeah, どうぞ。
はい、今日のセッションのテーマがアーカイブのできることとできないことというようなことを、先ほど私も明確に知りましたけども、ご期待に添えるかどうか分かりませんけど、土方アーカイブに限って、お話しさせていただきます。はい、どうぞ。
So today's theme, I just learned that today's theme of the session is what we can archive and what we cannot archive. So I'm trying to, make effort. I'm going to make effort to, live up to the theme. どうぞ。
はい、すみません。一つはやはり非常に特殊なアーカイブであるということ。それから同時に非常に今日的というか現代的というか今の課題に応えなければいけないアーカイブであるということ。そういうことを含めながら同時にアーカイブとして普遍的なものを追求していることは確かなので、それが可能になっているのかできてないのかということが問われるかというふうに思います。
So we are trying to make our archive as universal as possible, and then I'm going to introduce that what is possible and what is impossible today in this session. どうぞ。
土方、アーカイブはどこから言っていいのか分かりません。よく我々は、アーカイブの実験っていうことをこれまで言ってきました。
So we are talking about the experiment of the archive using this Hijikata archive.
でも現在はもうアーカイブの実験っていうふうに言っていられない。もうすでに、実験を超えた段階であるかと思います。
Now, the phase we are in is already beyond the experiment because we've been doing so many years.
もともと土方アーカイブはもちろん一つの理念と目的っていうのがありましたので、それをまず、3つばかり紹介しておきます。言うまでもなくアートのアーカイブであること、 これはもう土方辰巳個人、舞踏だけに限ってなんですが、さまざまなアーカイブの資料、マテリアルが我々保存しているし、絶えずそれを収集、今も絶えず収集しているということですね。それからもう一つが、これは大学に置いてあるということも関わりますが、研究アーカイブであるということですね。単に資料を収集するだけではなくて、その資料をもとに我々も同時に研究していくということで、それを我々はジェネティックアーカイブエンジンというふうに名付けていますけども、出来上がった作品だけではなくて、その作品の制作過程について我々も同時に研究しているということですね。それから、もう一つは、あえて言えば、デジタルアーカイブである。これはもう現在当たり前なんですが、その3点を一つの理念と目的として挙げておきます。
So we have three rationale or purposes for this archive. The three is like one is the art archive, and the second is research archive, and the third is digital archive. So in art, what we mean art archive is that we are collecting everything related to Hijikata, art and the dancing performance. And then second, as for the research archive, we are creating this archive to help researchers to collect information, and then also collect the processes of the research. So it helps researchers to record the process of their research. And the third is that this is digital archive, so that everybody can access to this archive. Those are the three rationale and purposes of this archive. Thank you.
はい、それに加えて、土方アーカイブの特色と役割というものを考えますと、一つは、これは土方辰巳っていうダンサー、舞踏家個人に限ってのアーカイブである、ね。それからもう一つは、土方アーカイブが一種の舞踏のセンターのような役割を日本で果たしているということですね。ダンサーとリサーチャー、それから国内の研究者と海外から来る研究者、そういう人たちのハブ的な役割をこの土方アーカイブが果たしているという、単に資料を収集するだけではなくて、人と人との関わり、コミュニケーションを介在させるという、そういうアーカイブになっているのが現実だと思います。
So, yes, I'm going to talk about the role and characteristic of the Hijikata archive. First of all, this is all about the Hijikata Tatsumi, like the individual, like his performance and his history. And then second is that this archive functions as a center of the whole Buto culture or whole Buto researchers and performers, so that those researchers or performers or artists from overseas and domestic, national Japanese people can interact and collaborate together through this Hijikata Tatsumi archive. どうぞ。
はい、合わせてアーカイブの機能と役割というものから少し我々が当初予期していなかったものが次々出てくるわけですね。その一つは何といってもアーカイブの国際化ということですね。で、1998年当時、今から約25年ぐらい前には、これほどアーカイブが国際化というか、国際的な役割を果たすとは思っていなかったので、これが大きな当初の予期したものとは違っているということですね。それと同時に活動が非常に多様になっているということですね。これだけ、単に資料を集めて保存して公開するというのはアーカイブの基本なんですが、それがアーカイブの、文化装置としての主な役割なんですが、それに過ぎないでもっと現実に我々がコミットしていくと非常に多様な活動を担わされてきたという、この2つが大きな今日の特徴であり、我々にとって予期しないことであった。
So when we started 25 years ago, we didn't expect this archive going to be very internationalized. Now there are a lot of like foreign researchers and the foreign performers are using this archive. And then second thing is that it gets much more complicated and having a lot of layers, because now we be able to commit the reality and what's happening right now through this archive. So it has much more complicated multi-layered functions than we expected 25 years ago. どうぞ。
はい、国際化ということで、現実に、この数年は、コロナによって海外から、ビジターはほとんどいないんですが、それ以前は、アーカイブのリサーチャーは7割から8割が、海外の人、外国人であるということですね。それと同時に、私自身も、海外に出ていく機会が非常に多くなって、当初はもちろんそういうことなかったんですが、この7、8年、10年ですかね、毎年、海外3カ所、4カ所出かけてお話したり、展覧会をしたりというようなさまざまな国際的な活動を担わされているということです。
So as for the internationalization, actually 70 to 80% of our researchers are actually foreign, are coming from overseas. And then this 10 years before the pandemic, he himself also, Morishita-san also has been, visiting many foreign institutes. Explaining about this Hijikata archive. どうぞ。
はい、例えばこれは中国語で書かれている冊子ですけれども、これは北京で我々は舞踏について、展示をしたり、ワークショップをしたり、それから、私もお話しさせていただいたときに作った図録ですが、こういった中国語による冊子、それからこれは、英語版ですけれども、これは3年前にロサンゼルスで土方の展示をしたときに作った図録を兼ねた冊子です。ほとんどは、写真が多いんですが、英語版の冊子を作っているということで、こういう形で非常に国際的に対応しなければいけないアーカイブになったんですね。それからもう一つ、これも我々の研究成果の一つとして、土方の大変貴重な舞踏譜についての解説書ですが、こういう形で英語での研究成果を出さなきゃいけなかったという、こういう形で、国内向けではなくて、むしろ海外に向けての発信というものが非常に多くなっているというのは現実です。
So here's the pamphlet. When we had an exhibition at Beijing, this is like done in Chinese. And then also 3 years ago, we had an exhibition in Los Angeles, and we also had this pamphlet. And another one is this. That this is a general explanation of Buto in English, and we published this. So basically, we've been taking the role of, explaining and explaining the general idea of Buto to the foreigners or the people interested in Buto overseas.
それから活動の多様性ということで言えば、今言ったような本来のアーカイブの仕事のほかに、土方の生まれ故郷の秋田に美術館を作ること、それと各地、日本を含めて、海外を含めて、土方に関わる展示、展覧会、エキシビションを行っていること、それとか、今、先ほど初めに紹介しましたけれども、フューチャーランといった海外向けの番組を作るとか、そういうことで、本来のアーカイブ活動をベースにしながら、非常に多様な活動を求められてきたという。
So beside archiving Hijikata's performances and artwork, we have we have diverse activities. For example, we are building a new museum at Hijikata's birthplace, and also we are making a lot of, we are organizing a lot of exhibitions like within Japan. And also we are creating a program called Future Run at Keio University. So those are our diverse activities beside archiving Hijikata performance.
まあ、そういうことでアーカイブができること、できないことを考えていくと、かなりできることの可能性が広がって、実際にそれを実現したんですが、同時に、じゃあまだできないことは何なのかということを考えると、ちょっと今、一言で言えないんですが、まだまだ残されている課題があるというふうに思っています。
So, yeah, as for the possibility of archive, we've been actually increasing the possibility of archive, and then we've been realizing many activities as I explained, but there are still things we can do in the future. So now we are working hard.
まあ我々は舞踏とは何かという問いを絶えず突きつけられているんですけども、それに十分答えきれていないということ。そして同時に海外で行われている舞踏が我々の予想っていうか、考えている舞踏をはるかに超えた形での舞踏が実際に実践されてきているので、そういったものを我々はもう掌握しきれなくなっている。そういう意味ではアーカイブで担えること、担えないこと、これからますます明確になっていきますけれども、原理的なものを追求しながら同時に現在世界で行われている実践的なものをどう捉えていくかということ、これがこれから今後10年、まだ20年のアーカイブの課題かというふうに考えています。
So we've been always facing the question, what is Buto? What Buto is? And then like this, a lot of diverse or different Buto performance overseas, and then it's getting beyond his imagination, my imagination. So that's why, like now we are thinking about what we can do as an archive, and is it possible for us to grasp all sorts of Buto performance outside Japan? How can we for them, how can we understand all those different forms of Buto performance overseas? Those are the questions they are facing and tackling right now.
はい、ひとまずそういうことで、青野さん整理されてなくて申し訳ありません。ありがとう。
No, that's my presentation. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Morishita-san. But do you want me to show the Future Learn platform to people in the audience?
フューチャーラン見せて皆さんに見せるのはいかがでしょうか。
もちろん映像の部分だけでも見ていただいて。
So please, yeah.
Okay. So I think this is open. I think it's something like a MOOC, right? So it's an open platform for people to take this course about Buto, and especially Hijikata's Buto, I guess. And so it's a 4-week course that you can take, right? So Morishita-san, you also like was a part of the team who developed this colloquium, or?
このコースを作られたの、土方さん、森下さんもこのコースの一員としてやられたんですか？
そうですね、はい。
Yes.
先ほどの映像を皆さんに見てこれいただけますかね？
Yes, I did. I played a role of this developing this course. Is it possible, Pandu? Is it possible to show the video?
今のそうですね、ビデオを皆さんに全部のコースを撮った方はいいんですけど、このだけでも紹介ビデオなので。
Okay.
This is the introduction video. Yeah.
Called Buto. Buto is a genre of performance art that comes out of Japan. It began in the late 1950s, so only has a roughly 60-year-old history, but it has spread internationally during that time. On this course, we will be focusing on the world's first Buto dancer, Tatsumi Hijikata. So to introduce myself, I am Yoko Watanabe, a curator at Keio University Arts Center. The Arts Center is a research institution which focuses on post-war Japanese art. And one of our activities is managing the Tatsumi Hijikata archive.
Tatsumi Hijikata created Buto dance, having studied modern dance and classical ballet. He shaped Buto both as a rejection of those preceding dance forms and in response to the influence of European philosophy and art. So we might want to ask exactly what kind of context could have given rise to Buto. We'll begin this course by exploring Hijikata's creation of Buto dance from the 1950s to 1960s in order to get a sense of what is meant by the term Buto. From here, we return to the revolution of Buto during the 1970s, which will be the focus of week 2 of the course. In the 1970s, Hijikata began to explore new ideas, themes, and techniques, at the same time as refining a new choreographic method. So it was during this period that the Buto method as such was established. Buto dance uses notation, just as music uses a score, and it is this form of Buto notation or Butofu that will be the focus of the third week. Building on your understanding of Hijikata's Buto method from week 2, we'll be delving into the world of Hijikata's notational Buto. This will be framed in relation to the other ways in which dance notation has developed internationally. Though it is over 30 years since Hijikata passed away in 1986, the dancers who learned Buto under his direction continue to preserve the heritage and aesthetics of his dance form. In the last week, we'll be looking at the examination and reception of Buto internationally and at the international research of Buto. Finally, we'll wrap things up by thinking about the development and future of Buto.
Throughout the course, we will be making use of archival documents housed at the Arts Center. We will also be inviting guest teachers like Rosa van Hausbergen, who researches dance notation and Buto dance, to offer you a wide range of perspectives on the dance form. Our hope is that through learning about Buto dance, your eyes will be opened to a new art form created in the Far East in the late 20th century.
はい、ありがとうございます。これで私の役割は終わりました。ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. That's my role. I've done my role. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Morishita-san, because I'm very touched by your speech, because when we talk about archive, we always think about preserving the past and how we can keep hold of these materials from an earlier period. But I also see in Hijikata's archive what you are doing is really to explore the future, the possibility of future. And that's really I think a very important message from your work. Yeah, so I don't know if
過去をその土方の歴史をまとめたりそのアーカイブするだけじゃなくて、その未来の挑戦も出されてて、新しい活動にも挑まれているので素晴らしいと思いました。
はい、ありがとうございます。Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, I think I'm waiting for more questions from the audience. So please take this very precious opportunity. If you have any questions, please type it in the chat box, or you can direct message me. Okay, our next speaker is Shimizu Kento-san from Sendai Mediatheque. So Shimizu-san, you can maybe share, and this speech will also be interpreted by Aoyama-san.
はい。じゃあいいでしょうか。お願いします。
Yes, it's perfect.
私は仙台メディアテークという公共文化施設で学芸をしてますけれども、2011年のですね、東日本大震災に関する映像アーカイブの公開を意図した展覧会をですね、2014年に開催しまして、そのことについて執筆しましたので、その内容を簡単にご紹介したいと思います。
So I'm a curator at the Sendai Mediatheque, and then I just wrote a book chapter about 2014 exhibition held in Sendai Mediatheque, showcasing video archive related to the 311 disaster. So that's I'm going to in this presentation I'm going to introduce that exhibition. Thank you. どうぞ。
はい。で、最初に私が学芸員として勤務している仙台メディアテークについて簡単にご紹介しますけれども、仙台メディアテークは2001年に、開館した仙台市の公共文化施設です。
First, I'd like to briefly introduce Sendai Mediatheque, where I work as a curator. So, Sendai Mediatheque is a community culture center located in Sendai City. Opened its door in 2001.
で、建築のデザインは、伊藤豊さんという方で、現在の館長は、哲学者の鷲田清和が務めております。
The building was designed by the architect Toyo Ito, and the current director of the center is the philosopher Kiyokazu Washida.
で、メディアテークはですね、7階建てのガラス張りの建物で、その中にですね、公共図書館と、それからギャラリー、それからスタジオ、それからシアターですね。あとは多目的な、オープンスペースなんかを、備えています。
The building of Mediatheque has 7 floors and contains a public library, gallery spaces, theater, and recording studio, and a multi-purpose space.
で、開館以降ですね、アートセンター、それからメディアセンターとしてですね、多くの市民に利用されていて、仙台市のランドマークにもなっているんですけども、メディアテークでは、コンテンポラリーアートの展覧会であるとか、ワークショップであるとか、あるいはアートプロジェクトですね、それから、映画の上映のプログラム、それから、市民の創造的な活動の支援なんかを行っています。
So, since its opening, it has been used by the public as a vital arts and media center, while the building itself, with its distinctive style, has become a landmark of Sendai City. So, Mediatheque supports creative activities of the citizens, including contemporary art exhibitions, workshops, long-term art projects, and film screenings. どうぞ。
はい。それでアーカイブといってもですね、メディアテークはミュージアムではないので、ものとしての資料とかですね、作品のコレクションは行っていません。
So we are not a museum. We do not collect artwork or physical materials.
で、そのためですね、いわゆる収蔵庫と展示室というそのミュージアムの基本的な構造とは異なっていて、建物のデザインが示す通りですね、ガラス張りですから、メディアテークの中で活動する人々の動向はですね、そのまま館外へ、常に公開されていると言ってもいいような特徴があります。
So it's structured differently than a museum in the fundamental sense that it does not have storage rooms or exhibition rooms. Instead, as our name and glass panes of our building suggest, the activities of the people using our facilities are themselves open or presented all the time to the public outside the building. どうぞ。
はい。それで、 2011年のですね、3月11日に発生した東日本大震災以降に、メディアテークはですね、市民による震災の記録活動のプラットフォームとしてですね、3月11日を忘れないためにセンターですね、The Center for Remembering 311というのを始めました。
So in response to the Tohoku Tripoli disaster of the 11 March 2011, so Sendai Mediatheque launched a new project called Center for Remembering 311. どうぞ。
通称忘れんという言い方をしておりますけれども。
It's called 忘れん in Japanese.
で、現在の、参加の活動者は207名いらっしゃいまして、これまでにですね、映像が1601、それから写真が9589、それからサウンド、音声記録が101件あります。
We have 207 participants, and then 207 participants had contributed 1,601 videos and 90,589 photographs and 101 audio recordings.
で、この忘れんというプロジェクトはですね、震災の記録を後世に残すという、目的と同時にですね、コミュニティアーカイブの作成活動でもあります。
So, as well as preserving the records of the disaster for the future, the project aims to create a community archive.
すなわちその市民がですね、自らの手で、自分たちの手で、自分たちの地域社会の現在の姿を観察して、記録して、保存するということで、地域社会のその文化的なその継承を図ろうということを考えています。
So, in other words, it is a way for citizens to carry their cultural legacy by observing, recording, and preserving the current state of their communities with their own hands. どうぞ。
はい。で、震災からですね、3年が経過した2014年に、記録と想起、イメージの家を歩くという展覧会を開催しました。
So in 2014, about 3 years after 311, Sendai Mediatheque put on an exhibition called Record and Recording, Walking on the House of Images, which showcased the selected items from the Recorder 311 archives.
この展覧会の目的の一つはですね、数年間、ちょうど3年間のうちに、忘れんに集められた、記録の、公開ですね。公的機関の、成果発表という目的が一つあります。
So one of the primary purposes of this exhibition was to share the digital archives of Wasuren with the public, given our status as a public institution.
でもう一つの、目的はその、デジタルアーカイブとして、プロジェクトをやっていますので、その見えないわけですよね。その不可視の、デジタルアーカイブにそのフィジカルな、形を、与えることでですね、アーカイブの量とか質みたいなものをその伝達できないかということを考えました。
So another purpose was to give physical form to an intangible or invisible digital archive. So, yeah, どうぞ。
はい。で、これが実際にその展覧会場で配布した会場の図面ですね。で、
どうぞ。
この展覧会ではですね、家を模したセット、家というか部屋ですね、家をセットを作って、その中にその忘れに集められた、映像記録を配置しています。
So this is a map of the exhibition site that was actually distributed at the exhibition venue. Yes, so, okay, どうぞ。
はい。で、図面の左下の方にが入り口でですね、右下の方が出口なんですけど、 全部で23の部屋があってですね、それらがまあドアからドアで連続しているという、まあ、展示空間を設計しました。
So for this exhibition, we created a set that imitated a house and placed the Austrian archive footage inside it. And the lower left-hand corner of the drawing is the entrance, and a lower right-hand corner is the exit. The exhibition space was designed with a total of 23 rooms.
で、この後ちょっと写真を10枚ぐらい、ありますけど、まあ、台所とかですね、子供部屋とか、寝室とかですね、居間とかですね、家を構成する、まあ、一部屋ずつの要素が、つながっていくという構造になっています。
So I'm going to show you the couple of photos here, and then there are kitchens, and there are like rooms, the rooms for children. So the rooms are designed to be more like imitations of those found in the real homes. And so visitors can travel from one kitchen to another. どうぞ。
で、一つの部屋はですね、だいたい20平米ほどの、広さを持っていて、まあ、内部にその家具とか、シンクなんかを配置して、まあ、生活空間を演出しています。
So we arranged the furniture, a sink and other pieces to make them look like living spaces. So one room was as large as 20 square meters.
でまあ、家の要素をある種、まあ、カルカチュアイズして、いるわけですけれども、まあ、あんまりこう一部屋ずつにですね、まあ、豪華な内装にするというよりは、ある種ちょっとチープな感じにしてですね、部屋自体も少し間延びしたような感じの空間を作っていますね。
So the rooms was designed to be imitations of those found in the real homes. And then we deliberately make it not luxurious. It's kind of a cheap style we used.
で、まあ、部屋の、外側にもですね、作品が展示してあって、外に、まあ、出て、見ることもできるようになっています。
So artworks was displayed both inside and outside the room, and the visitors could walk outside.
はい。で、詳しい、より詳しいことがですね、動画がありまして、そのリンクを今送りました。
So I'll just provide a more detailed video. I will try to the link to the more detailed video recording to this exhibition. So you can click it.
仙台メディアテイクの YouTube のチャンネルがある。
This is from the channel of Sendai Mediatheque, YouTube channel of Sendai Mediatheque.
はい、それでですね、まあ、この展覧会をやるにあたって、その課題としてたことなんですけど、一つにはですね、まあ、震災の体験は、まあ、被災体験っていうのはですね、あくまでもその個別的で具体的なものなんですけど、その後からですね、展覧会としてまあ表すことで、まあ、出来事の単純化とかですね、その特定の文脈化みたいなことがまあどうしてもなされてしまうということですね。
The disaster experience is individual and concrete, but later when they are presented in an exhibition, the events are simplified and contextualized.
まあ、映像に記録するという時点でですね、まあ、こういった問題というのは発生してきていると思いますけれども、その震災の後にですね、まあ、仙台に来て活動したり、あるいは市民として活動していたそのワスレンの人たちは、まあ、こういったその表彰不可能性みたいな問題についてすごくこう葛藤しながら制作活動をしていました。
So the problem of the impossibility of representation is a problem that arises at the time of recording the images. And then those people or still the participants, so the recorders of the images struggle with this problem all the time.
ですから、その展覧会をやるにあたって、その震災の記録家がこうだということを見せるよりも、その各記録者の葛藤みたいなものをですね、なんとか伝えられないかということを一つ考えていました。
So rather than showing what the disaster was, we have tried to convey this struggle of participants and citizens in this exhibition.
それからですね、これはアライダ・アスマンというドイツの文化学者が彼女の著書である早期の文化の中で紹介している言葉ですけども、早期を促す象徴がですね、権威化してその社会の頂点の方に向かうほど出来事の個別性はですね、脱身体化されていって、抽象化されていってですね、早期のクールダウンのようなことが起きるというようなことを指摘しています。で、公共文化施設であるメディアテークでですね、こういったその個別の記録活動を展示することで、一定のその権威化はどうしても発生してしまうわけですね。
So this is a quote from late Asman. The more the symbols that prompt recall become authoritative and more toward the apex of society, the more the individuality of the event is the bodization and abstracted, resulting in a cool down of recall. So since Sendai Mediatheque is a public institution, so it means that our exhibition will, inadvertently, impart a certain degree of authoritativeness. So this is the struggle we faced. どうぞ。
ですから、メディアテークとしてはですね、メディアテーク自身がどうにかしてそういった権威化みたいなことを覆せないかということを考えていて、その見る人のですね、その身体的な経験として、その早期のプロセスを経験してもらうというようなことを考えました。
So this the problem of us giving certain degree of authoritativeness to the exhibition. We struggled with that, and then we thought about is it possible for us to somehow subvert it. And then we aim to present the process of recording the event as a physical experience through the exhibition. どうぞ。
あるいはそのデジタルアーカイブとしてそのコード化された記録群になるわけですけれども、そういったものを脱コード化というかですね、もう一回そのフィジカルなものに置き換えるというようなことを考えましたね。
So in other words, we wanted to decode the records that have been coded as digital archives.
はい。でもう一つはですね、鑑賞者である市民はですね、被災者でもあるので、その被災の当事者性ですね、その当事者性っていうのがすごい多様なグラデーションのようにあって、でそういったその複雑なその心情にできるだけ配慮することを考えました。
So the citizens who are the viewers are also the victims of this disaster. And then their experience as a disaster victim vary depending on the individual. So we try to take these complex feelings into account.
ただですね、そういったその当事者性への配慮ということを、展示内容をその抑制するようなことではなくて、その当事者性がむしろ 複雑なグラデーションであるということ自体を、何か空間に、表すことができないかということを、考えました。
But this consideration was not addressed by limiting the content of the exhibition, but by convening the complexity of victimhood itself in a physical space.
こういったことを考えて、個室が連なる家のような展示を作ったということです。
So, in order to achieve this, we created an exhibition that resembled a house that accommodated a series of private rooms.
それでイメージの家についてですけども、
So about the house of images.
一つは単純なことで、記録映像を見る装置としての、家という意味です。
So first of all, this house as a device for viewing documentary images.
で、メディアテイクのワスレンに公的なアーカイブとして収められてもですね、個別の映像記録というのはあくまでも記録者の個人的な関心によって、制作されています。でその中には、展示されることを意図してないというような記録もあるわけですね。
So even though the participants are taking part in this public documentation activity, they make each video recording out of their own private interest.
それで展示体験としてですね、鑑賞者があくまでも侵入者のようにですね、誰かのプライベートな空間に入り込んだような感覚を伴いながら映像を見るというような体験を作り出そうとしました。
So we try to have this exhibit. We try to have the exhibit visitors feel like trespassers, like as though they are looking at the images and clips after having entered someone else's private space.
はい。で、もう一個はですね、単純に、これも単純ですけども、震災によって、多くの家が失われ、ました。そういった喪失した家のイメージということですね。
So as for the image of a house lost due to the disaster, the houses and the towns lost in the... sorry, どうぞ。
それぞれの映像記録の中に、地震とかですね、津波で失われた、家や町のことがですね、展示している家を模した空間と、リンクすることでですね、過去と現在が交錯するような感覚が与えられるのではないかということを考えました。
So towns and houses lost in the earthquake and tsunami shown in each video recording are linked to the house-like space in this exhibition. So we try to convey, we try to link these two things.
それからあとはですね、震災の映像を見ていた自分の視聴者の家のイメージですね。で、東日本大震災の場合ですね、多くの人がテレビの報道とか、あるいはインターネットの映像によって震災を知ることが多かったわけです。で、実際にそれは被災地の遠方だけじゃなくて、仙台の中、被災地においても実際には映像によって津波の状況なんかを知ったわけですね。
So for many people, they learned about the disaster through news reports and images on the internet. So this is true not only of the people who lived far away places, but also of the people who lived in the affected areas.
多くの場合、自分の部屋でですね、そういった映像を見ているということがあったと思うんですけれども、そういった意味でですね、家のような空間の連なりっていうのは、鑑賞者がですね、その映像を当時見ていた、自分の記憶を投影できる場所にもなるのではないかというふうに考えました。
So it would often be their own home and room they saw being shown in the media. So therefore, a series of spaces that look like a house becomes a place where viewers can project their own memories of that time.
はい。で、これで最後ですけども、こういったそのメディアテイクがですね、市民によるアーカイブ作成活動とか、あるいはそういったその成果を展示することの意義についてです。
So this is the last slide. So this is about, so what is the question? What is the significance of the citizens archiving activities and the exhibition showcasing these archives?
で、一つにはその、いわゆる性政治的なその状況をですね、加速させているかもしれないその映像メディア自体についてですね、見ているだけではなくて直接作ってみることによって批評的に捉えることができるのではないかということです。
So, those visual media might be accelerating the biopolitical situation. So we take a critical look at the visual media, which may be accelerating the biopolitical situation through the production of images.
2つ目も同じようなことで、その映像だけでなくてですね、その映像のアーカイブ自体もですね、自ら自分たちの手で作っていけるということを、示そうとしています。
So to show that we as citizens can create videos and archive of videos with our own hands rather than just viewing them as recipients.
最後にはその現在の社会の状況、地域の社会の状況をですね、自分たちが記録することが、公の記録になるという、そういったそのある種の権利を持っているということを示すことですね。
So the last thing is to show that we have the right to record and publicly document our present society. So that's the last, yeah.
はい、以上です。ありがとうございました。
That's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Shimizu-san, and also thank you, Aoyama-san, for this great interpretation job. I got to know this project, including both the archive and also the exhibition, also around 2016-17, and I'm also very touched, and also from the talk Shimizu-san just gave, I found there's a very critical and reflective view to memory and image representation, because even our memory is now mediated by all these media and just as you said, all these devices provided by this biopolitical environment. So so this interesting circulation from memory to archive to exhibition and then to another kind of memory, that kind of process that is involved in curation, in archiving, and also the disaster experience is very complicated, but I really like your presentation. I just want to take the chance to show you an image I recently make, and to show you how the last part of memory is not only staying with the victims of the earthquake in your project, but also travel through the image all the way to my memory. Now, maybe Shimizu-san, you can you recognize the image on the right-hand side? Maybe. I think this is an image I took from your project. And,
yeah.
Right. So this is yeah. I think it's on that day, on the March 11th. Then some in the hair salon, someone is
Yes.
cutting hair on the street, even if there's still earthquake. And but on the right hand side, this is an image of Shanghai now, because Shanghai is in a lockdown and people cannot go out, and so there's this kind of artificial, like a man-made kind of blocks in the residential area. And so people can also do this on the street and, even over the barricade. And when I saw this image on the right-hand side, I immediately think about this image from your archive. And when I tried to put them together, I found that they've merged to one in a sense that, they are all showing a certain kind of human condition in the disastrous moment. But people still want to keep the last slice of dignity by having their hair cut. So I mean, I just really want to share with you this because I think this disaster experience is universal in many, it's beyond time and space. And I think the archive itself is, and also the exhibition is also very powerful. I mean, so it's coming to other people's memory as a kind of a visual archive too. So that's really just my response, very quick response. I don't know if Rei-san can quickly maybe.
清水さん、今の非常に今のトークとあと実際にそのエキシビジョンを見せていただいて素晴らしい印象を受けました。記憶とそのアーカイブとエキシビジョン、それぞれがこう移っていくとこのプロセスについてキュレーションがどのように行われるか、アーカイブがどのように行われるかというのが非常に深く勉強することができました。で、今見せた写真のように上海のロックダウンですねの時にこのフェンス越しにこ髪を切るということが起こってまして、これを見た瞬間にすぐ東北のその写真が思い出されまして、人間のコンディション、人間の条件ですか、人間の状態、こういう非常に厳しい災害の時にどのような最後のディグニティですね、自分たちの尊厳を保つか、もしくは見せるか、その髪を切るという行為によって、お互いの髪を切るという行為によって最後の尊厳を保つかというのをこの写真から見ることが私はできましたと。何かもしあればお教えください。
Yeah, just my slice of short response. But we actually have 2 questions in the chat box. So I think maybe we can just go to these questions first and then maybe we can continue, because I think these questions are also maybe could be, kicking off a lot of discussions in first place. So the first question is for Dr. KAIJIYA about the oral art history archive. How are artists selected for inclusion in the archive? Is there any avenue for the public to propose prospective artists for the interview system?
Thank you very much for your question. Basically, we try to interview first with elderly people in their 70s and 80s, and actually we make a list of candidates for the interview, but we don't always stick to this list because we need to obtain grants to maintain our activities. So when we apply for a grant, we often set themes of our project for multiple years. Like we will interview with people for the art of the 1960s or art of the 1970s, or we will interview with people related to intermediate, something like that. So we sometimes have to restrict our activities to specific areas, and also some candidates tell us that it's not an appropriate time for the interviews because interviews are very time consuming and sometimes a kind of a psychological burden because we interview people from their early period to the present. So interviewing means looking back their own past from the beginning. So, and also some people decline our requests due to their health condition or other circumstances. So, but basically we try to interview with people in their 70s and 80s. And of course, please let us know about your opinion about people we need to interview. So there is a contact page in our archives. So I will send you the URL. So please let us know about your opinion. And actually, I check every email from this website. So thank you very much for asking.
Mm-hmm. So, so my quick follow-up is so is the archive still growing, even if slowly now?
It's growing, but yes, I have to say that it's a bit slower and slower because we started this archive when we are in our 30s, because I think I was 35 years old when we started this archive. But so, you know, I'm now in the 50s and there's a lot of works and jobs from the university and other fields. So, but we are now thinking about kind of how can I say? We are thinking about recruiting new members, younger people, and maybe retire. Maybe sometimes I will retire from this archive activities because because if we don't, if we stick to our members, when our member get old, this activity will end. But so we need to incorporate, we need to include new members. So we are now thinking about this kind of transformation. So am I answering your question?
Yeah, I just want to say that usually we have this imagination about archive that it will always be there and it will always be growing. But in many cases, for example, as you said, funding is a very important, like a crucial limitation for the archive. Or, you know, we are all growing old, and one day we might not have the energy to do this anymore. So yesterday, we also have this very legendary, I would say, archivist, the one-man archivist from Singapore. So he has also thinking about retiring next year. He has been doing this really for his entire life. So, but yeah, so maybe you know, archive also has a time to retire, like because of the different kind of limitations. Yeah. So, yeah, but yeah, please.
Yeah, of course. We are now non-profit organizations, but we already accumulate many interviews with videos, sounds, and photographs. So maybe in the future, we might donate these archival materials to institutions because now institutions in Japan are more interested in archival materials. So maybe in the future, we have to think about this possibility.
Okay, thank you. So I think the audience will contact you later for more, communication. Great. So, and there's another question for Morishita-san. So thank you very much for the insightful sharings. My question is regarding the materials of archive on the history of Butoh. Does the archive mostly collect materials on the transformation of art form, or it also concerns materials related to Butoh, such as the ephemeral materials, such as performance catalog, and about the display of the materials in the center, in your center? It seems from the video that some materials are shown as open display. Can you talk more about that? Maybe Aoyama-san can briefly explain to you.
なんかその土方アーカイブについてお伺いしたいという質問があるんですが、一つはその内容なんですけど、その集めているものはその例えば舞踏のその踊り方や形が変化しているみたいなものを集められているのか、それともそのパフォーマンスカタログですね、カタログのようなものを集められているのか、それについて教えていただきたいというのが一つで、もう一つの質問は、集められているもののアーカイブがどのように開かれているか、そのビデオから見ると、ある一定の部分がそのオープンディスプレイです。非常に開かれて見れる、外の人が見れるようになっていると思うんですが、どうなっているのか教えていただきたい。
リサーチャーがアーカイブに来られた場合は、基本的に美術館の展覧会のようにたくさんの人が一気に見るんでなくて、お一人お一人に対応していきます。
Okay. So it's not open for it's not like everybody can see at the same time. It's just as for the researcher, we are going to help researcher by one individually.
だからリサーチャーの要望と、それからリサーチャーのレベルっていうとおかしいですけども、ビデオを見たいっていう人はビデオをお見せして、さらに進んで舞踏譜について見たいっておっしゃれば舞踏譜を見せる。あるいは我々が誘導して、こういう舞踏譜もあります。こういうものを見ていただくと、より土方の舞踏を理解していただきますという形で、誘導していろんな資料を見ていただく。で、原則として、指針、個人的な内容を含む以外のものはすべて公開している。
So it's up to the individual request. Of the researchers, we first receive the request from the researcher, and then, for example, if they are interested in the videos, we just help them to access to the videos we have. And for example, if they are interested in the Butoh notes of Butoh, the detailed explanation of the performance, we are going to let them see the Butoh notes of Butoh performance. So it's just it depends on the individual request. We are going to work on them. All the collections are accessible and public, but we work, we respond to the requests of individual researcher. Thank you.
資料の種類は先ほどから出ている動画以外にもちろん写真、スチールもあります。舞台写真もありますし、それから音声、録音、土方が使った舞台の音楽、 これはオープンリールとかカセットテープ、いろんなメディアに入ってますけども、それ以外に土方の原稿、メモ類、それから土方が出演したり、土方が制作したあらゆる講演に関わるフライヤーですとかパンフレット、そういったエフェメラ類、それから舞台で使った衣装、舞台美術、そういったさまざまなものが保存されているので、それをリサーチャーの要望に応じて見せる、あるいは場合によっては、土方の衣装を着ていただいた場合もあるので、そういったいろんな対応の形で要望に応えている
So as for the like collected
少
material,
々お時間をください。
as for the collect,
もう少々お時間をください。
ごめんなさい、こ
まず
れ iPad が
の
勝手に反応
ロックを
してるだけ
解除して。ください。
すみません。どう
okay,
ぞ。
so as for the collected materials, we have videos, we have photos, we have sound recordings in the form of a cassette tape or DVD, and we have also recorded music, and we also have scripts and notes written by Hijikata, and then we also collect stage costume, like clothes that Hijikata wore at the stage. So we also help researchers or people who want to access those collected materials.
特に今、多くの方が研究対象にしているのは舞踏譜、舞踏ノーテーションなんですが、実はボーダーにあります。紙の上で言えば2000面以上あります。だからこれを2000面すべて調査した人はまだ一人もいないんですね。
Wow.
だから今ちょうどイギリスからアーカイブに調査に来られてずっと日本に滞在しているローザさんという人は今舞踏譜の研究されてますけども、大変な作業だと思います。私も2000面を全部丁寧に見てはいないので、必要なところしか見ていませんけども、やはりこれから土方がどういうふうに舞踏を作ったかということを、土方の舞踏のメソッドというんですかね、そういうものを解き明かすにはやはり舞踏譜をすべて調査しないといけないので、これ非常に重要だと思いますね。
So most valuable material we have here is butofu, buto notation, and then there are 2,000, as many as 2,000 buto notations, and then nobody has ever studied all of them. And then now actually we have a visitor from UK studying those buto notation. ローゼさんロー
ザさんという方、ごめんなさい。
はい、
ちょうどフューチャーランでも協力していただいている。
So the person who is collaborating with us for Future Run project. So she's now studying this buto notations at our archive. Yeah, ありがとうございます。
と質問では大体そういうことでよろしいですかね。
Is it okay? I mean, did I answer your question?
Okay, I think maybe if the audience have follow-up question, yeah, we can still keep typing, okay?
ありがとうございました。大丈夫です。
はい、はい、どうぞ。
Okay, so then there's a follow-up question for KAIJIYA-san, but I think you have already answered in the chat box. It's about if you decline any kind of interview, and the answer is yes. It depends on the feasibility.
Yes, it depends on the feasibility of the interviews. So, yeah.
Okay, maybe let's also move on to Eileen's. Eileen is also one of our authors she talked about her chapter about the Philippines yesterday. So her question for Shimizu is wondering if you could share any feedback from those who provided content for the exhibition, particularly in regard to the issues you raised about the possible debodying and abstracting that happens within the institutional representation you cited. So maybe or maybe
Yeah, okay. So the question is regarding the Sendai, this one, right? Aileen's question, should I, right?
This question, yes.
Okay, sorry. So, 清水さん見えますでしょうか？そのエイリーンさんの質問なんですけど、そのコンテンツを作ったその、市民の方々とかからどのようなフィードバックが来たかとか、そういうのをもしよければ教えていただければ嬉しいです。で、特にそのディボリング、その脱身体化ですね。脱身体化や抽象化がその組織としてその表現するときとかエキシビジョンをやるときにどうしても起こってしまうということを清水さんがおっしゃったんですけど、そのことについてもしその参加者の方々から何かそのフィードバックがあれば、もしここで教えていただければと思います。
実際の原稿の方にはですね、展覧会を見た人の感想みたいなのを書いたんですけど、今日持ってこなかったんで、具体的なやつはちょっと忘れてましたが、そうですね、いわゆる、なんていうかな、怖かったっていう意見結構多かったですね。当時のことをやっぱり思い出して、怖かったっていうこと。つまり、隣の部屋で、の声とかが聞こえてくるんだけど、それは一体誰の声なのかっていうのがだんだん分からなくなってくると。お化け屋敷のようなものとは誰も思ってないんだけども、なんかこうその当時の感覚みたいなものがそれぞれに蘇ってくるということはアンケートにありました。その感覚っていうのは仙台で被災した人が当時を思い出すっていうこともあれば、東京で映像を見ていた人が仙台に見に来てくれて、東京で見ていた当時のことを思い出すとかですね、いろんな人の当時があると思うんですけど、展覧会を見ているときにそういうことを思い出したという感想が多かったですね。
So we did a survey.
だからそういう意味では、そういう意味ではなんか信頼、なんていうかな、抽象化しきらなかったっていうことは良かったんじゃないかと思いますね。
なるほど。So we did a survey on the people or visitors and the participants, and then we have actually the data, but we don't have it. I mean, I don't bring it today, but in general, there is some comments that they get scared. They feel fear visiting this exhibition. For example, listening to the voice of the people from next door, like from the next room, that they cannot see the person talking, or so so this is like a comment from both sides of the people. For example, people from Tokyo who watch the disaster in distance, and the people from the Tohoku region who actually experience the disaster. So both sides, they said they felt scared visiting these exhibitions. 清水さん、actually, 今僕先生の持ってるんですけど、もしよかったら非常にそのフィードバック素晴らしい内容なんです。ここでシェアしてもよろしいですか？
どうぞ。
ちょっと今コピーしてここに移します。So I'm going to just share the feedback of the visitors to the Wasuren exhibition, Sendai exhibition. So you can see there is three comments from the audience, from the visitors. Not three, it's
清水さん、私もちょっとさっき質問をチャットに書いたんですけれども、すみません、日本語で話してますけど、I just posted my question to Shimizu-san in a chat. So because I'm just wondering whether you noticed a kind of trigger warning for those exhibitions. そのやっぱりこうなんかこうみんなこうちょっとこう何かを思い出してしまうので、やっぱこう少し警告というか、なんかそういうものはなんかやっぱりこう要するにこれはこういうこと辛い経験が含まれますとか、そういうことって掲示したりするんでしょうか？
いや、しなかったですね、この時は。しなかったんです。
それは今でもしなくてよかったというふうに思いますか？
そうですね。なんかできるだけそういうことをせずにできないかっていうことを考えてした。
そうですか。ありがとう。
So, KAIJIYA-san's question, KAIJIYA-sensei's question to the Shimizu sensei, Shimizu-san, is that have you like warned or have you given some kind of explanation for the visitors beforehand? Because I mean, we are all afraid of, making visitors feel the shock, the traumatic experience of like 301 again through this exhibition. So have you done any kind of explanation? Have you provided some kind of like precautious explanation to the visitors beforehand? That's KAIJIYA sensei's question. And then Shimizu sensei said, no, we didn't. That's the deliberate choice not to give the explanation before. So どうしてなんか聞いてよろしいですか？
それぞれの記録が、津波が襲ってくるところとかですね、そういったものではないんですね。その瞬間を記録しているというよりは、震災の後の生活を記録しているものなので、必ずしも視覚的なその衝撃を与えることをそれぞれの記録が意図してないってことは一つありますね。
One of the reasons that most of the recordings are not about the exact disastrous moment, I mean exact disaster, earthquake, or tsunami. It's more about aftermath, the lifestyle or what happened to the people after the disaster. So it's not intended, and the recordings are also not intended to shock people or to traumatize people from the beginning. どうぞ。
だからさっきパンルーさんが紹介したようなその髪を切るような写真とかですね、ああいった記録が多いので、必ずしもなんかそのトラウマ的なものにつながるとはあんまり考えてなかったってこともあります。
Those recordings are more like just Dr. Bandu is just shown us those people, the lifestyle after the disaster, like having a haircut and things like that. So it's not very much traumatic images. That's why we didn't give some kind of explanation beforehand.
I didn't unmute myself. I think these are the questions from the audience, and we actually have only 2 minutes left. So I wonder if each of you also have any questions for each other, or have maybe the last wrap up to today's roundtable. Maybe KAIJIYA-san, you first.
I have a question for Morishita-san. I'm just wondering how Keio University started Art Center in the late 90s, because especially they accept Hijikata, Tatsumi's archival materials. It's not common. It was not common in the late 90s. So I just wonder what is the background, the reasons. その90年代に土方アーカイブをはじめ、そのアートセンターが90年代にその慶応にできたのがやっぱり非常に先駆的だったと思うんですけど、それはどうしてなんでしょうか？
一つは当時のアートセンターをリードしている先生方、特に 梶谷さんもご存知のように前田先生、美術の先生ですね。で、美術の先生たちは当然ヨーロッパに美術の研究に行くとアーカイブがある。でも日本ではそういうアーカイブがないということで、何か実験的にできないかと考えたんですね。その時に土方アーカイブ、目をつけられて、特に土方アーカイブの場合はダンスだけではなくて、梶谷さんご存知のように当時の前衛美術の人たち、前衛音楽家の人たち、非常に幅広い人たちと土方は交流しているので、多様な方がアーカイブに来られるだろう。でまたアーカイブの調査研究も多様なものが生まれるだろう。で、アートセンターとしては非常にふさわしいんではないかというのが一番大きなことだったんじゃないでしょうか。
ありがとうございます。
Okay, so the Morishita sensei's answer is that yes, it was very challenging considering the situation in the 90s. There's not many archives in Japan in 90s, but thanks to the help of the art professors, including Professor Maeda, and then they studied in Europe, and they realized there are good archives in Europe related to art. So that's why we had a chance to start this Hijikata archive, and then we possibly we are able to create this this Hijikata archive with the help of this avant-garde artists. I mean, the people interested in those 前衛美術ですよね。前衛美術、
前衛音楽の人たちと土方非常に交流してた。
ああ、なるほど。前衛アバンギャルドでよろしいですか。
そうですね、アバンギャルド。
アバンギャルド、そうですね。アバンギャルド、those people who are doing this avant-garde music and avant-garde art has a very deep connection with the Hijikata. And then they are very much interested in the Hijikata's work. That's why we started this Hijikata. Like there's so much attention paid to Hijikata's performance by those avant-garde artists. That's why we could start this Hijikata archive as early as 90s.
Okay, great. Thank you for the answer. So yes, as I said, maybe do Morishita-san and Shimizu-san have the last wrap up for today's roundtable? Or
清水先生、最後に何か一言を教えていただければ。
何か教える。
最後のこのまとめとして何か一言。
そうですね。メディアテイクのこの忘れの活動っていうのはまだ現在も続いていて、もう震災の後10年も経ってから何を記録するんだっていうふうに言えなくもないわけですけど、もうそういう意味では震災の記録というよりはもう今の地域社会の記録というふうに意味が変わってきてるかもしれませんが、それでもいまだに継続中で、一回登録すると別にずっと登録しっぱなしなので、仙台を離れた人もまた仙台に来たときには何かメディアテイクの機材とか場所が使えるというような状況はずっと継続して続けています。
Our work at the Mediatheque related to this 311 disaster, triple disaster, has been ongoing. But maybe some people might ask questions that it's already been take more than 10 years, and then what can we do? What can we record? But it's more about recording the current state of communities in this area that we are doing. And then those facilities and those recording machines are all accessible by the citizens or any people. So that's the way we are going to help people to record their lifestyles and communities.
Thank you. Thank you.
じゃあ私から最後。
The last word from me. どうぞ。
はい。舞踏は海外に広まっていく、最初はヨーロッパが中心だったんですが、ヨーロッパから東ヨーロッパ、ロシア、北米、それからメキシコ、ブラジル、アルゼンチンっていった中南米、 そして今、非常にアジア地域で盛んに、舞踏を行われつつあるんですね。で、私もインドネシア、タイ、マレーシア、台湾、韓国、中国と回ってきましたけども、舞踏はまあ世界的って言っても、まあ日本の舞踏家の身体は言ってみればアジア人の身体と同じですから、まあ、その辺のことも含めて、今後さらにアジアで舞踏がどういうふうに捉えられていくのか、土方のフィロソフィー、哲学、あるいは舞踏の方法論だけじゃなくて、身体に即してアジアの人たちとどう交流できるのかっていうのをさらに、考えるべきかなというふうに今思っているんですね。まあ、そういう意味では今日の香港から発信されたセッションで私も刺激を受けましたので、さらに今後考えていきたいというふうに思っています。
So thank you very much. So the Buto, first overseas reaction to Buto came from actually Eastern Europe. That Eastern European people paid attention to or got very much passionate interest in our work, Hijikata's performance. And then it moved to Northern Europe, and then North America, and then eventually it came to Asia, including like China, Taiwan, Korea, and then I'm visiting to those Asian cities and to share the ideas of Hijikata's performance these days. And then Hijikata's performance is based on Asian's body because Hijikata himself is Asian, so like it's based on Asian body, and then it has something to do with it has like a very deep connection with Hijikata's philosophy, like Hijikata's Asian body and Hijikata's philosophy are very, very connected, so that it's very I think it's very important to think Hijikata's philosophy from the perspective of Asian body. So I was particularly like impressed by today's session organized by the Hong Kong people, and then it's just I learned a lot, and I just enjoyed a lot thinking about Hijikata's philosophy from Asian perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Maybe KAIJIYA-san remember I gave a talk about the Buto dancer in Hong Kong and his performance together with an Indian, also Hong Kong, right. Indian Hong Kong dancer. Do you remember? Yeah,
yeah, I remember.
I was always thinking about that, and I hope Morishita-san, maybe you should also come to Hong Kong to see live the Hong Kong Buto dancers' performance in connection with the other ethnic minorities dancer in Hong Kong, and it's really interesting. It will be very interesting. Yeah.
森下さん、ぜひ香港にいらして、その香港で行われているインドの方がやっている舞踏などを見ていただければと願っています。
そうですね。I'm sorry, I've not been to Hong Kong, so I hope to come to Hong Kong in the near future. Thank you.
Yes, okay. So thank you so much, all the speakers and also our interpreter. And I think that we are really on time in comparison to yesterday. So thank you so much for your wonderful sharing. And also we learned so much from your past works and also ongoing passions towards archiving in Asia. And I think it's really a great time we spent with you and also for the audience. And thank you everyone for coming, and please stay tuned, as I said, for the other two events we were organizing in the near future. Okay, so thank you, have a nice day, and see you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Aoyama-san. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございました。
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 Yes, okay, thank you, bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.